Hello everybody, and welcome to JN Aquarium. Today we're going to talk about our clownfish rack and what we've done to it since our last update, which was some time ago. Stay tuned. So this is it in all its glory, my experimental clownfish rack. This is what I've got accomplished so far. The only thing that hasn't been done is a second tank added on the top rack. So far so good. Everything is working well. My pump is strong enough to lift water to the second tier of the rack. Everything else seems to be functioning great. System cycled well. Got lots of filtration and all the clownfish seem very happy. The sump is getting well established. Lots of algae in there on the live rock refugium part. And we have a couple, three actually, clownfish that aren't as healthy as the rest. And when I say I don't mean disease or parasites, just abnormalities and such. So they're not saleable clownfish, but I raised them this big. I'll let them live in my sump. On this end of my sump, just a lot of K1, my protein skimmer, and my filter sock. This all helps keep my water very clean, and it goes through a scrubber pad before it gets to the refugium, which again helps clean my water as well with the live sand and live rock. And then in this end we have a couple of sponge filters, a couple of heaters, and the return pump. So far this sump's been working very well. If I do another rack build, I will make some modifications, probably a smaller refugium and more places for filter media. My first rack is very much the same. There's nothing in this tank, it's waiting. There's some eggs upstairs that actually will be ready to hatch Boxing Day, so that's where they will go. These spots actually worked out really well in between the tanks because now I have spots for stuff like this. My friend Trevor, he's growing some phytoplankton, so he gave me some, and I just kind of keep that going here. It's come in handy quite a bit actually. I've had it for about 5 or 6 days, and I've used half that bottle and refilled it every single day, and it continues to seem to grow back. I know in order to keep this going, I'm gonna have to get some fertilizer, so I just may do that, get some phyto fertilizer and keep it going. It's a nice natural way to feed your rotifers, and if you're doing clownfish, I hope you're doing rotifers because it's very hard without them. So my next tank over, these guys are a couple months old now, and they're doing great. They're absolutely doing great. They're very active. They love their tank. I made some homemade lids to help with evaporation, and we'll just sneak in here if we can and have a look at these guys in the basket. These guys are from a spawn that didn't turn out very well. They're the only two survivors from that spawn, so I have them here in this breeder basket until they're big enough to go in with everybody else in here. And they're getting pretty close now. They're quite happy just in this breeder basket for now. So all in all, I think these guys are coming out pretty good, growing fast. They eat a lot of TDO. And when I decide to do brine shrimp, I have my brine shrimp hatchery right beside them here. So that's the second tank in on first level of the rack, and the third tank in, we have some older guys. These guys are about 5 months old. You'll notice one of my baskets is on the bottom, and I did that on purpose. I did have it separating some fish, but then I changed some things around, as you'll see in a minute with the next rack. But I left it in there just kind of as a bit of an experiment. And I will tell you, there's always 1 or 2 clownfish in here. I don't know if it's a pair trying to pair up or not, but they do like hanging out in there. Everybody else just hangs out here. quite happy. I got an ammonia alert badge so I can maintain proper ammonia levels in the tank, and that should be nothing. And so far so good. Most of these tanks you'll see have sponge filters as well as drain into the sump and fresh water being pumped in from the sump. Quite frankly, there is just a lot of filtration in here. The fourth and last tank on this rack is housing some 3-day-old babies. Very hard to see from the sides. Let's see if we can get a look from the top. So these are 3-day-old babies. They're very hard to focus in on. There is a lot of phytoplankton in the tank. So they're eating lots of rotifers, and the rotifers are eating the phytoplankton. So the water is tinted, as it should be. They just got a water change, and yeah, there's not a lot of fish in here. I'd say there's probably only, maybe 30 larvae in here. It was a very small hatch. It was a big clutch, but they didn't hatch real well. So this is what we got left with, but we have more eggs coming in a few days, so I'm not too upset about it. And they will get to spend their time growing through metamorphosis and everything else in their own tank here. So we got about another 17 days of green water rotifers and lots of stress, hoping they make it through. Wish us luck on this one. This is the hardest time to keep them alive, and we're still trying to break that code, break that secret, get things all proper. So very, very hard with these guys. At this age, they almost seem like they just look for a reason to die. So hopefully these guys make it and they can turn into some of our beautiful clowns that we have. So here is our newest addition to the rack. It's a 20-gallon long that I drilled myself. It's got a drain in this side, and it's got a drain on the exact opposite side of it. And we have water flow in here and water flow in here, both sides, and a glass divider down the middle. I had originally planned on dividing it into 2 separate tanks for 2 different systems. Some may ask, well, why didn't you just get 2 10-gallon tanks and do that? Well, I wanted to drill them, and the glass on a 20 long is twice as thick as the glass on a 10-gallon tank. So I thought, why don't I just drill a 20 twice, and I have less chances of breaking the tank. So I went ahead and made some other dividers where water can pass through, so I can divide each space up into 3 spaces, giving me 6 spaces for trying to make some pairs with some of our larger clownfish that we have. So far, this is working out great. In the 2 spaces that don't have the water intake coming in, I have put sponge filters just to break the surface tension, just to make sure there's enough oxygen. I've done that on this side as well. And everybody gets their own clay pot. Some people may ask, well, why are they in such a small space? That's not very nice, that's not very humane, whatever. Well, these guys don't need a lot of space. They don't want a lot of space. This is the amount of space that they use. They generally hang around the pots, and as the idea is not necessarily space, but clean water. And these guys have a very small space of about 3 gallons, but they have the water stability and cleanliness of about 125 to 140 gallons of water. So that's what makes this work out so well. Let's have a look at some of our guys we're trying to pair up here. These 2 are beautiful. I love them. They got all kinds of black on them now. They come out really black, and I'm really interested in seeing how these guys turn out. So So that's why I put that pair in here. These guys, that guy's pretty much just a regular Nemo, but this guy's got an extreme amount of black on him too, almost mocha color. So again, should be just a real neat pairing. And it looks like they're into the bickering stage already. Here are some beautiful whites, and we're gonna see how these whites turn out. See if they pair up together, get along, and again, just some beautiful young clowns. Over to the next one, we have some snowflakes going on here. And again, we will see how they pair up, see how they make out, and hopefully they do well too. And here we have a white with, I believe this guy would be considered, I'm not sure, just a mist bar maybe. Mist bar, Picasso, whatever you want to call them. But it's got some really neat looks to him, so we thought this pairing would be kind of neat. And last but not least, we got a little buckshot and a neat little mist bar in this tank. And we'll see how they turn out as well. The whole idea of this, and none of these are for sale, we're raising them up at this point just to see how they turn out and for ourselves on our own knowledge of the best practices for learning how to pair fish up. So we're trying this technique. We will see how this works. If we see problems or someone's getting picked on way too much, we have the means to move them to another tank. And last but not least, this tank is not on the rack. This is our original grow out tank, what we first had to grow out all of our first batch of babies. Well, now we've picked a pair that we're gonna keep. This is Nicole's favorite fish right here. Right here, that's her favoriteest pattern she's seen. So we found him a suitable mate, and these guys are gonna get to live their lives out in here. Give them a little pot. They have a piece of live rock with lots of apistia on it and bubble algae and everything. It's not a very nice tank so far, but it works for growing them out just great. So we'll see how these guys turn out with their, as they get bigger, and see how if their patterns stay the same or if they get a bit different colors. And going back to my original point that clownfish really don't need much space, these guys have this whole tank and they generally just hang out by that flower pot. So other than when I need to do it, I have one more 20-gallon long to put up beside the one that's there, and this rack should be complete. So far, like I said, the system works efficiently. I have no leaks. All the plumbing works good. Lots of shutoffs. It's been actually very easy to work with, to my surprise. So if I do decide to get into more clownfish breeding, by all means, I would build another rack. I would do some things quite a bit different. Some things were completed on this rack because I got some items for free or deals on other items, so it's not exactly uniform. My next rack would probably consist of all 20-gallon talls. But so far, I'm very happy with this rack. If you've been looking at making a rack, maybe I've given you some ideas. Maybe I've given you some ideas on what not to do as well. Either way, hope it helps. From us to you, happy fish keeping. Take care, everybody.